Tana River, Mogatana.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to add my voice to congratulate the presenter, the chair for CRA. Sitting here, I think you've done a decent job, but it's upon us to germinate the product that is here. The one question that I wanted clarified, and I hope, Madam Chair of the session, you'd give her an opportunity. And colleagues, if you can allow me, maybe even we carry it towards germinating the final formula. I wanted people to understand, and honorable members to understand, that counties that are faced with emergency situations like Tana River, and I'm not talking only of Tana River, but other counties as well that are low-lying. And in our place, we have that line that goes, there's Tana River, there's Garissa County, there is Lamu County. And I'm speaking about Tana River because almost 50% of the county went underwater when we had the flooding. So the question I'm asking Madam Chair CRA is, how can you say that emergency should not be considered because there's a fund established under PFM Act? That fund does not help because all the work the equitable share had done for the year and years past have been swept away. Why can't we create a situation or cushion counties like ours, which are low-lying, with some fund? And how can we get emergency factored in, built in within the formula so that you take care of us? Because all these other factors, the parameters you have set, they can be swept away in one go. How do we create a situation where we are also being fair to us? I submit, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I will come back to you, but let me go to Narok, Senator of Narok.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me begin by appreciating the good work that the Commission has undertaken. I know it is very difficult for you to be able to deal with politicians who want to send money to their counties. I empathize with my colleague from Elgeyo Marakwet. He would want to see this formula go without being challenged, but that's not the reality. Because as politicians, we know getting money from Treasury is like trying to fight as a third monkey on the Noah's Ark. It's very difficult. So I think what I wanted to know is this. You've shared information on unreliable data. We've also shared that we don't really, the credibility of the data that is coming from counties cannot be used to be able to assist CRA come up with the correct formula. What, according to you, would be the best thing for us to do to approach Treasury so that at least Parliament can allocate an additional 50 billion or like 450 billion to counties so that all counties get money? Because the current formula that you are proposing, knowing very well that we had proposed to send 407 billion. Was it 407 billion to counties? But then we came back and they said 380. We fought you to 387. We are not sure we'll ever be able to get above 387. Maybe next year they might even come back and say you stick there. If they do that and we've passed this formula, how will I face the people of Narok when we lose almost 311 million back to them? So the question is, based on your recommendation, because it's now upon us to go and internalize this, what is the best way to proceed if we are not sure of getting additional revenue? Do we stick to the third generation formula and move with those parameters? Or do we then make sure we put our foot down to get 450 billion and adapt to a new parameter? Because of course I want Elgeyo Marakwet to make money, but I also do not want to lose money as a county of Narok. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Meru, Embu.
Asante Chair. Yangu mimi simpongezi chairperson wa CRA kwa sababu kitu ya kwanza wakati devolution ilianza au watu walisaidiwa sana na mambo ya devolution na miaka 10 hawajafanya upelelezi waone ile pesa wamepatiwa kwa kipindi ya miaka 10 wakiwa ni marginalized community wamefanya kazi namna gani. Kwa sababu tukiwa maseneta tumeenda county kama Turkana, county nyingi na wamepatiwa lot of money na taxi wanalipa ni kidogo lakini hakuna kitu wamefanya hiyo pesa. Sasa hii kama Embu tutaruhusu. Kwa hivyo mambo mengine mpaka iangaliwe. Kwa hivyo mimi ningesema CRA kitu ya kwanza ingefanya upelelezi waone hiyo pesa wamefanya kazi na mradi alafu ndio waongezewe pesa nyingine. Na sisi tunalipa a lot of tax. Kwa hiyo napinga. Embu inapinga kwa sababu tunaruhusu pesa.
Thank you, Senator. Senate Oversight Fund to you, Mr. Speaker. Senator of Machakos, then I'll go to...
Thank you, Madam Chair of the session. Mine is just to complain like other senators about the 32 counties that are supposed to be losing while others are gaining. We are all equal and we need and we demand for equal share. So every county should be allocated equitably because like Machakos, we are losing more than 300 million. And just now when the chair of CRA was speaking, she said that she will make sure that no county loses, and already we are losing. And so most of the projects are stalled because they cannot continue because the allocations that is there and what they had planned to do, they can't do it now. So me personally, I can never vote for this. We need equal share of allocation to every county. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Let me go back to Senator of Eddie, Senator Eddie.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I find myself in the same precarious situation, just like the Chair of Finance and Budget, because I'm also in the Finance and Budget Committee, and I'd given a lot of feedback when this formula was first presented to us by CRA. I appreciate the effort that the CRA has put, but I am a little bit disappointed on some parameters. And I'll say them...
Honorable members, please let's listen to one another so that we don't repeat.
Yes,
if we allow members to be heard, especially the members of the committee that have already interrogated, it will help us move faster.
So I'm just going to encourage CRA to be more scientific in this formula generation. And there are going just to be 4 comments that I think that I'll reserve myself to our position or my position, because we are going to, hopefully I'll be finance and budget and I'll help with this together with the chair there. But the first principle that I wanted the CRA to actually look at, because we talked about this, what do you use as a base year in developing this formula? The base year cannot be futuristic, looking at what you hope to gain from the vertical share in future. The base year can either be the first year of devolution or the current year that we are in. That's the first principle. Because if you pay the formula on a futuristic amount of the future, you cannot get your formula right. The gain that any county is going to get is not as a function of the formula, but as a function of increase in revenue that is not going to happen when the vertical share increase is registered.
Same matter, wash it in. That's the formula.
Hello? Yeah, I think this is better now. Then the second thing that I scientifically wanted to interrogate, CRA has told us that we have a problem with data in this country. And then CRA has gone and ahead and introduced something called income distance. Income distance, in simple terms, is looking or comparing the per capita income of counties vis-a-vis the per capita income of the entire nation. Kept that simple. But you cannot get per capita income of counties without variables for why you are doing that. There has to be math. And the first math there would be, you have to show us in each county, did you look at their own source revenue as a result of coming with a per capita income? Did you look at things like compensations of all employees in those counties? Did you look at rent of the people in those counties? Did you look at all the royalties earned in those counties? Did you look at all the interest they make in those counties? And did you look at any other businesses like small enterprises in those counties that are not registered in the National Register? So I think that it is so untidy to even try to introduce income distance in this formula, because what you're going to do is that you're going to need the entire variables that computes what an income distance mean in economic terms. So that is the first flaw, because if there is somewhere where you need data, it is income distance to calculate that data, and it is not there to be able to calculate all the parameters to come up with an income distance. So it's not going to work. The third comment is a comment on geographical size. Article 6 of the Constitution defines this country's territorial integrity as both water and land, because there are communities that don't depend on land, they depend on water for their economic arrangements. So when you look at those two and not only look at land, are you able to look at water as a function? Because if you go somewhere like Migori County, where almost a third of the population is dependent on economic activities in the water, the government there finds himself investing in water economic arrangements that is part of the money that is coming there. So that parameter is not well interrogated. The last one, Chair, population gets about 42%. Now, when population gets about 42%, that population only makes sense when you look at how that population affects the infrastructure of respective counties. I want to take one thing, for instance, roads. If you take roads, are you going to look at density versus distance, where, for instance, you'll go to some counties where density is alone. You'll get that a county like Kisii, for instance. They might be making a small road from Soneka to Kisii town, but the density there might force Kisii County government to spend more money to maintain that road because of the regular use of that road, vis-a-vis a distance that's affected in Garissa, where you have invested in a road and maybe what will affect it is vagaries of nature like flood. So when you come up with 42% on population, how did you compute that 42%? So in conclusion, Madam Chair, I am urging CRA that maybe in future, or even as we're going to consider this, can we be more scientific on the numbers that we're coming with in all these formulas? Because without the scientific basis for them, then we are going round and round, and we would rather just maintain the current formula, but then fight for more money to come to counties, then we'll still be able to get more money regardless of the formula.
Thank you, Senator. I'll go to Senator Kiambu. I have we have consulted with the chair, and she has accepted we take all your comments, then she can react once, because some of them are comments that belong to us, actually. Senator Kiambu.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, I don't agree with those who are saying that this is just a proposal.
and we should not question CRA. If they brought a good proposal, we'll applaud them. If they bring a bad proposal, we actually should even question their existence. So we should interrogate and dissect this proposal, because there's what we call institutional memory. For those who will come after, we'll have to follow the sentiment of the Senate. Madam Chair, I also want to note that this is one of the most important exercises that any Senate will carry. It happens once in 5 years. And if it happens once in 5 years, and you're living in times where some counties have been threatened with isolation, so this sharing of revenue should have that can you protect me, Madam Chair? We should have that at the back of our mind, Madam Chair.
Point of order, Chair.
That you discourage point of orders. You discourage.
Please,
allow me to speak.
Let's allow him to finish. When you have your chance,
yeah,
you can respond.
Yeah, you can respond then. Madam, what I'm trying to say, devolution came to cushion counties. From any executive government that would want to undermine a specific region. So when we are talking about this exercise, we have to have that at the back of our mind, that sometimes we can have a rogue government. So we have to make sure that every county is taken care of. Now, having said that, my question is, there is one parameter they call income distance. And Madam Chair, income distance is there because they are basing it on gross county product per capita. And if they're doing that, I am aware they have based it or benchmarked it with Nairobi. So, yet counties are autonomous. How are you calling it a gross county product per capita based on the distance from your county to Nairobi, Madam Speaker? That is something that we need to interrogate because counties are autonomous. Question number 2, the issue of land. If you look at the presentation that were given there, land in the third formula was 8%. In the fourth formula, it has gone to 9%. I don't know whether Kenya has acquired another territory because land cannot increase. Why are we basing it on 9%? So I believe that if we interrogate this issue and make sure that we do not use it to either use their stable data, as you said, or lack of it thereof, sometimes we might give counties a little share from what they deserve or what they require if we go with this formula as given by CRA, Madam Chair. So, and I know this income distance issue, they borrowed it from India, Madam Speaker. But in India, it is a poverty index. So we are having two parameters of poverty index and income distance, which is talking about the same thing. So I do not understand, or I do not agree with those who are saying we should not interrogate this. It's just a proposal. Even Adani was a proposal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Gola, Beatrice.
Thank you, Session Chair. My observation to the Chair, CRA, is that I'm amused that in this country we can say we lack data, especially when I look at the parameters on water and sanitation. I think that is not being honest, because we have engaged these sectors at particular times and they are able to indicate the data of availability of these resources up to village levels. So the water secretary has at some point presented those data. How comes we have no data? Unless, Chair, the indication of the lack of data is meant to create a vacuum for somebody to do as they want. And 2, Madam Speaker, I want to get what is the take of CRA on this affirmative action. I know the Senate has voted. I can say recently I was in Marakwet, and you could see that offering offering certain services, taking into consideration the topography of the place, may be even 10 or 5 times how it would be done elsewhere. And then lastly, Madam Chair, I would like to get the take of CRA on incentive use of incentives as a way of allocating resources. That is, if a county is able to use as expected or not, are they able to introduce incentives?
Thank you. Let me move to Senator Murango.
Yes,
I'll come back again this way.
Asante sana mwenyekiti wa zamu. Kwanza sijui kama maswali ambayo tunauliza itakuwa na maana, kwa sababu nimesikia kwamba ripoti ishaletwa katika kamati, ama itakuwa ni kama kuchota maji na nyavu, kwa sababu ripoti kama imefika hata tunaosema hapa sijui kama ni ya maana. Lakini hebu niseme yangu ni moja tu. Mwenyekiti wa zamu, nasikia sasa wale maseneta ambao wanasikia kama wanapoteza pesa wanapinga, wale wanapata wanaunga mkono. Na unajua ni kweli, kwa sababu mwamba ngoma ngozi uvuta kwake. Lakini ningepeana tu story tu kidogo. Niseme ya kwamba kuna daktari moja aliambia mgonjwa wake kwamba anafaa kule akunywe maziwa, mayai na nyama ya ng'ombe na sausage ya nguruwe ndio aweze kupona. Ng'ombe akatoa maziwa akaenda, kuku akataka mayai akaenda, nguruwe wakambaki, kwa sababu ndio yule mgonjwa apate sausage lazima angekufa. Sisi na akina Sifuna ndio hawa sasa nguruwe ambao tunapoteza. Wale wengine kama Senator Regeo Marakwet ndio kuku, kwa sababu ni ndogo atage aende, Karungo akamuliwe aende. Kwa hivyo panapo kupoteza, mwenyekiti wa zamu, itakuwa ni ngumu sana hata tukiongea leo ama mwaka mzima. Asante sana.
Thank you, Senator. Senator of Nyamira.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Those of us who are in the last Senate, this matter was very emotive. And the Governor for Mandera, we closed ranks to ensure that counties in northern Kenya were not denied resources. So as the chair of the Finance Committee, you should be the last person to pass or support a formula that is going to disadvantage some counties. That should never be supported by your committee, because we stood with counties from northeastern province, especially Mandela. And if I remember, you are losing 2 billion. You are losing 2 billion. But we stood with you because we wanted fairness. And the chair of CRA, if you read Article 2 or 3, the first parameter that should guide you is to ensure that counties are able to perform their functions. That should be the guiding. Whether you have a small county like Elgeyo Marakwet or Nyamira, or a big county like Nairobi, each county must be able to perform their functions. So if you bring a formula that is going to reduce money from some counties and you deny them the ability of performing their functions, then that's not a formula that should get the support of the Senate. And then there should be fairness, Madam Chair. You know, if you do a calculation between, just pick 4 counties. If you pick Garissa, Mandera, Wajir, Marsabit, the increase of 30 billion, these counties are disappearing with about 7 billion. An increase of 30 billion benefiting 4 counties only. I don't think that is fair. So we need a formula that, you know, Senate is there to protect all counties, all governments. We are not here to say, if Nyamira is getting, then I should not care about Kericho. No, we want to defend devolution. Then number 2, honorable senators, You know, we have counties where governors have never cared to understand that fiscal responsibility, how you use money, is a factor that should be used in sharing resources under Article 2 or 3. We have counties that have never responded to invitations by a number of our committees. But when you read, even summons. But when you read your formula, there is nothing about fiscal responsibility. I mean, this is the time that we should show that we have teeth. If you don't come to us, we should include a formula on fiscal responsibility. If you are not able to come to the Senate and defend your reports, they have moved from qualified, some are now adverse, but they are getting money again. I mean, that is being irresponsible. Chair, I thought we would, in this formula, introduce a parameter, even if it is 0.3, on fiscal responsibility, so that counties whose governors are not appearing before the Senate, counties where we have adverse reports, they should be punished. So I finally I hope, Chair, you can give a minute. I want to understand the science. This thing you have introduced called income distance resources. You know, I thought what should concern us is to ensure that resources go to people. We want resources go to people because we are not sending money to distance. It's for people to get services. So what is this formula called income distance? That imetoka wapi? And how does it translate to resources going to help people who reside in those counties? But I think we should not accept a formula that is not fair, that is glaringly disadvantaging some counties. Even if I'm not in the category of those losing, I want to stand with all the 47 counties so that there is equity and fairness. So I hope you will just spend, even if that will not change, Madam Chair, let us understand, because when you go to the House and we want to tweak and change this formula, let us at least have the benefit of having been explained by CRA how they arrived at the formula that is before us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'll go to Majority Leader, then I'll come back to Narok. Kajiado.
Can I proceed?
Yeah, I'll come back. Maybe the Majority Leader would have proceeded. Will it be better for you, Majority, to listen a little bit more?
I'm just making comments.
But
also.
I want him to talk also because if you can see the last trend, I wanted comments from these people of last year who gave us sleepless nights. And I think it has been typed by my student there. It's been now typed in a very good summary by Omogeni. It's good to listen to Cheriot as a senator from the previous session, because it will help us understand this shift that the chair of the committee is saying, which is very important, that there was severe change of parameters. And these people, in the last House, by the way, people became united against the leadership of the House. They became united, and that unity brought up some parameters that are unique, and we need to understand why they came there, because I wish CRA had read the report of the Senate and why they were very passionate about the new parameters. It helps. So I think for that reason, Senator of Kericho, not Majority Leader, but Senator of Kericho.
Thank you. Thank you, my teacher. I have very brief comments on this topic. You know, there's something, and I'll just begin from where you've just concluded. While it's good to be a senator representing your people, it's even greater to entrench devolution as a senator in the Republic of Kenya. And I guess that's what experience and time needs to teach all of us. We will get it wrong if we begin this program, Madam Chair, by carrying a piece of paper in your pocket, and every formula that is applied, your only responsibility becomes, am I gaining or losing? I think we need to interrogate more deeper than that. And I guess that is a calling that we are being made to. I appreciate the work that CRA has done. I will not be dismissive of their thoughts, because I believe and I know I'm certain about it, that it's made up of intelligent people who know what they are doing. My question is to seek to understand the reasoning behind the path that they want to guide us as a Senate in making the decision that will lead us to arrive at the fourth generation formula. Therefore, Madam Chairperson, I have a basic comment. First of all, on your presentation, I'd wish that you had stuck with the same name for the parameters, because if you look at your final presentation on what the parameters are, you're changing names from, like previously what they had been referred to. You call it in one of your presentation is basic share, and I think in the other presentation for the fourth generation formula, you refer it to as something else. I think just for neatness of presentation and to make it easy for us to follow, it's important that we set a culture of referring to parameters with one name. And that should help you to appreciate what, especially on the 4 parameters that don't vary in the second, the third, and the fourth generation, which is population, basic share, land, and poverty, because it features in all the 4 of them, only that the weights are different. For example, in the second generation, population was at 45%, you've reduced it to 42% in your proposal. It would be nice to know what would be your reasoning, why you think now it's a lesser weight, same as basic share, which you want to upscale from 20 rather, to 22%. This discussion about capping and uncapping of land size is a very complicated conversation, especially now that you want to grow the land weight from 7% and it being capped to 9% of geographical size, and in your formula is not clear whether you are capping or not capping it. I'd wish to hear your thoughts about it. On the issue of data, you know, CRA is not just another commission. You occupy a very important place in our country, where you are the commission that is constitutionally charged with the mandate of guiding the country on a path towards stability and equitable share of resources. This issue of data cannot just be left to fly like a point that you made and have asked us to do something. I wish you would have mentioned something about it and maybe asked us as Parliament to be more diligent, perhaps maybe set up law on how to prevent data breach, or a process through which you can have clean, uninfiltrated data that can guide, especially things to do with health, water, accessibility of road, because it's a very salient point, because basically what you're telling us is that even the data we have used previously, there's no guarantee that it was the right thing. Maybe somebody played some games on us and we believed that that is accurate information. Therefore, I wish, now that this is past due, that when Robert's committee consider this conversation, that they can lead the House into either coming up with some legal framework on how to secure, on how first to collate, then secure data that will help us. We have even this situation with our brothers and sisters from northern Kenya, the 3 counties that have been, whose census has been cancelled. I guess you're speaking to the same point, and we'll have to make a decision eventually on what basis to do. Lastly, please help me, and I really beg as a leader, to understand and make sense of this animal you're calling income distance. I listened to you quite keenly when you're making your presentation, and up to now, I'm still struggling to understand, because I want to, by the time that I eventually make a decision alongside my colleagues, to know what is the thinking of this income distance. How was it achieved? There was something that you removed, and your explanation from your presentation, I expect you to do better, Madam Chair. You say you removed fiscal effort and fiscal prudence because the Senate removed it last time. The reason we did it at that particular time of doing third generation is because it was so complicated, and you are trying to get even a simple point upon which you'd have more convergence of ideas and ensure that very few counties end up losing, if any must lose. But like Senator Okongo is saying, it's a constitutional doctrine. Article 203
I speaks of the need to incentivize counties to manage their resources better. I want to propose to Senator Roberts' committee that we must bring back that index of ensuring that the counties that manage their resources better are rewarded. Those that do it poorly, you don't collect ONSO's revenue, you don't manage your books properly, they must be punished. So that, because human beings, they respond to either the carrot or the stick. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tobiko. Then I go to Senator Nyeri. I'm sweeping this way. I'm coming this way. I will be there. Everybody will have a chance today. We said everybody has a right to talk on this one.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair, whereas it's natural for everybody to try and pull, the rope towards their direction or the direction of their individual counties, Chair would want to, as much as possible, take a global view of all counties and what is fair, and in terms of distribution, and what is equitably reasonable for all counties, Madam Speaker. Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I wanted to support the submission by Senator Mungatana that the parameters should include, it's very important that it includes an emergency index, because there are counties that are prone to emergency situations like droughts, floods, fires, Madam Speaker, and all this should be taken into consideration. Madam Chair, the essence of devolution was basically to address historical disadvantages of various parts of this country, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, when I say that, particularly in my mind, is pastoral counties, Madam Speaker, that were left behind in terms of infrastructural development, because it was considered infrastructure like roads, tarmac roads are not necessary, Madam Speaker. And there are counties, and I wanted particularly, our brothers who are from central Kenya, I don't know how many watched the Mutahi Nguni, the Fifth Estate submission the other day, of counties that have had 61 years of infrastructural development, 61 years of economic empowerment, social mobilization, advantage over the rest of the country, Madam Speaker. And this is what devolution was supposed to come and equalize, Madam, and stabilize, Madam Speaker, to the advantage of all Kenyans, Madam Speaker. When you talk of proximity to Nairobi and use the poverty index, most of the times, Madam Speaker, I will tell you, Kajiado has been ranked, like one of the very rich counties. But you know what? They use the lenses of the Nairobians who use Kajiado as a bedroom. The ones who have good homes, good sanitation facilities, but just go a little beyond and you find the poorest people living not very far from Nairobi. The only thing we see is lights from Nairobi. But there is no infrastructure reaching our places, Madam Speaker. Not roads, not electricity, not piped water, nothing, Madam Speaker. And so, Madam Speaker, when
off and on?
Yeah. Yes. Madam Speaker, when the CRA talks of the income distance, maybe it's good for us to know this income distance, whether it is in terms of gross county product per capita, whether it's an income variance, or whether it's just distance.
Because
Because, Madam Speaker, for some counties like Kajiado, our proximity to Nairobi has disadvantaged us. It has disadvantaged us a lot because it's considered that we have the facilities, we have the income when we don't, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, it will be very good if this income distance is specified, whether it's an income variance. And also know that, those who are earning well in Nairobi are looking for spaces elsewhere, but it doesn't mean the rural population is benefiting from their presence in our counties, Madam Speaker. So it's good that we are clear on what is being used, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Nyeri.
Thank you very much, Session Chair. Most of what I could have wanted to raise have been said by my colleagues, but there is one thing that I thought I could have expected to hear from the Chair CLA, and that is on the population growth, how that has been put in. On the landmass, that one, it is something that needs to be discussed quite further, but most importantly, fiscal prudence by county governments. We must create an incentive for those who are able to generate a lot on their own source revenue, those who are quite accountable on the expenditure, but most importantly, also create a kind of a punishment index that will ensure that those county governments that are not prudent in their expenditure, those which have a lot of queries from the Auditor General, that are also made to answer for that. And that the only way that can be done is to ensure that, because this is also a political tool, if the governors are made to pay for their own unaccountability, then it will discourage more and moving forward. Because it is, of course, a question that we keep on asking ourselves. 10 years after devolution, what is it that can be shown by some counties? While others have done very, very well, there are some who have done very, very poorly, not because they don't get the resource allocation, but because there is a lot of misuse. And I think these are some of the issues, and I think Senator Roba, these are some of the issues that we must look at. We know we have governors who are supposed to appear before us, and they do not, because they don't think that the Senate is important. This is now the time to show them that physical prudence is important when it comes to the allocation. Thank you, Session Chair.
Thank you, Senator of Taita Taveta.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. When we are doing the third basis of revenue sharing, we had agreed in principle that no county should lose money. No county should get less money than what they received in the previous year. That's what we agreed. In 2020, when we were doing the third basis, we were in a very unique situation, because then the parameters were changing and the variables were changing. We were using 2019 census data, yet the previous year we were using the 2009 data, so we were in those problems. I think having agreed that no county should lose money, the second thing should be, there are those very small counties that get very little money, making the counties almost not viable. The counties of Tharaka-Nithi, Taita Taveta, Elgeyo Marakwet, Lamu, Isiolo. There has to be a way of cushioning them. Maybe ring-fencing some little money to make sure that these counties get extra coins to make them more viable. Madam Speaker, I don't know how would, Madam Chair, I don't know how would do that, but there has to be a way of cushioning them and having them get slightly more money. And there should be a parameter, Madam Speaker, for those counties that are ravaged with human-wildlife conflict. I don't know how we'll do it, but it's really problematic, because we get a lot of income from tourism as a result of wildlife. But in the parameters, there's nowhere where we put a parameter to cushion the counties of Kajiado, Taita Taveta, because they are ravaged by the issue of human-wildlife conflict, Madam Speaker. So that would be my submission, that let's look for a way of getting a parameter to cushion the areas and regions that face human-wildlife conflict. Number two, we need to cushion the counties that get very little money, making the counties almost unviable. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Mariam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine is, first I appreciate the work of Sierra. And on that proposal of this, what we are discussing now, it originated from a stakeholders proposal, the parameters. On that parameters, you have analyzed it, and one of them you have omitted is infrastructure needs, which is not there, which you have omitted. My question is this infrastructure needs you have omitted, is it the same as this income distance? Because distance means roads. So my opinion, I suggest that these are structural needs, because in our county we need structural roads like roads. So in that scenario, your parameters, you have omitted that the needs people have, and you put the income distance. So my question, my opinion, my suggestion is now if we can suggest on changing to the road infrastructure needs instead of income distance. That is my opinion. Thank you.
Senator, let me go to Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Session Chair. I think, as Honorable Sifuna has said, as ODM, we have taken a position that no county should lose money. That's our position. Whatever formula we come up with, no county should lose money. Having said that, I also want to support Senator Mogeni and I think Senator Wamatangi position that even as we push to send more money to our counties, we should not forget a very important thing, which is fiscal responsibility. I am looking at the counties which have gained money, and where I sit as the chair of CPIC, and Senator Kajwang also agrees with me, those are the counties where corruption thrives. So I think as a Senate, even as we push hard to send more money to our counties, we must also ensure that fiscal responsibility is one of the factors that we are going to consider in this formula. Lastly, I also represent a small county, and I want to congratulate CRA. For the first time, this challenge of small counties has been taken care of by CRA, only that it's too little. And I think it's integrated in the equal share. That's why the equal share has gone up by only 2%. I think we need to look at this matter critically, because it is becoming unviable to sustain the small counties. For example, in my county, they have a budget, development budget of less than 700 million. What can you do with that? Even CDF from the 5 constituencies combined, they have more money than the governor. So I think as we think about monies to our counties, as we ensure that no county loses, we must also help those small counties so that they are sustainable, because they all inherited the same staff establishment as big counties. And it's so difficult to run a small county, especially if you are in close proximity to a county that gets a higher allocation. For example, Vihiga County is proximity to Kakamega County. They think the governor is not working. But because the governor is not able to do the same things that Kakamega can do with their large allocation they get from the exchequer. So I think, colleagues, we would be making an appeal to you to also think about the small counties, as Senator Overgeo Marakwet has said, because this is not sustainable.
Thank you. I'll go to Senator Oburu.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I also want to thank the Commissioner of Revenue Authority for the presentation. And Madam Chair, it is important that we don't keep on introducing new language and new formulas before we successfully and effectively implement the ones which we have. For instance, this equalization fund, when it was presented to us last year, I was quite concerned that the CRA was recommending allocations to some counties which don't deserve that fund at all. And yet that fund has a time limit. It is not a forever fund which is going to be incorporated in our budgets forever. It was meant to address the issue of inequality in allocations, in development, which was as a historical injustice meted out to some counties, particularly the ones in northern parts of our country. And this money was specifically meant to bring equality in development. And when the formula is presented to us, and even the counties you see benefiting from the fund, they are not actually the ones which should benefit from the fund, some of them. And I'm wondering, Madam Chair, now that that one is going to be wound up, now you have come up with income distance, which to me, it's replacing the poverty index. And the poverty index was a very well thought out formula, which I don't think should disappear it should disappear and replaced by a language which we have not weighed very well, which we don't understand, which is applicable in other jurisdictions. But in our country, it is coming up as a new concept. I don't know whether it is exactly replacing both poverty. There's food poverty and absolute poverty, and this county poverty index and so on. So together taken, why don't you even rationalize that poverty index instead of introducing another language which is confusing? So, Madam Chair, I hope that the equalization fund is going to be used to take care so that no county loses on this in this formula, and no county loses, and then we effectively use the equalization fund to deal with those factors which are of equalization in nature. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Wasingishu. Hi, Senator.
Thank you very much, Chair. First, let me start by thanking CRA for the job they have done, but first say that as a Senator for Wasingishu, having looked at the formula and seeing that we are gaining in terms of the new formula, but I would like to say that I think our position as the Senate, and it is important for devolution, is to ensure that no county is losing. I think that is the basic formula we would like to see as a Senate, that ensure that there is no county that is going to lose money so that another county can gain. Number two, I do support the need for reintroduction of the fiscal responsibility parameter, because that is what ensures that the money that is sent to counties are actually used for the purpose that was intended, and it also shows prudence and evidence that the money was properly used. But on the parameter of increase on own source revenue, I have an issue in terms of consideration of that parameter, because in the past, from experience, you would find a county that has increased its own source revenue by just 10 million, and that was their target, and it is perceived to have done extremely very well, and they get the funds or the reward for increase on own source revenue. But you would find counties that have increased their own source revenue by 300 million, 400 million, but because that was not the target, they then don't earn from the increase of own source revenue. So there will be need, if that parameter is going to be used, for further detailing of how a county then qualifies in terms of the increase of own source revenue. Finally, on the issue of small counties like my neighbor Elgeyo Marakwet County, and I think of other counties like Lamu and others, Madam Speaker, in my view, I think as a Senate, and for purposes of making sure devolution works in all parts of the country, and knowing very well that there was a very good reason as to why those counties had to exist, however small they are, that then I would suggest that there will be need to review the equitable share from the current figure to probably every county should get an equal share of at least 6 billion. The rest of the money then can be applied to the formulas and the parameters that are part of the current formula. Finally, I would, well, I know CRA is not the right entity to ask, but maybe any one of us, probably the chair of lands or the chair of security will tell us whether counties like Migori, Lamu, where do the boundary of Lamu County lie? Does it lie in the international boundary in the waters of Kenya or just the land? Because so that when you are considering the mass of the county, I think then Lamu, the boundary of Lamu should be to the farthest of the sea where the boundary of Kenya is, because that should be also considered as part of Lamu, so that the formula can also effectively apply. And for Migori, it should be somewhere in Lake Victoria. And so I know that might not be CRA, but if somebody could have some information, probably it will be useful to also know. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable Senators, we still have 2 topics, and I don't want us to take long, but the final person is going to be the DS. Before I ask the 2 to make their last comments, which will be very, very brief. So,
yeah,
DS.
Mine is very brief, Madam Chair. I first of all want to thank the Chair CRA because, of course, she has introduced new terms that are used in the US and other developed world, especially the income distance. This is a new vocabulary which you have introduced. So we thank you at least also for giving us a report to discuss. That is a milestone. I was very happy when you presented and you said there is no county which you lose, because that is the spirit of our Senate and the spirit of devolution. But when you computed your simulations on a projected figure and ambitions of 417 billion, myself I asked myself so many questions. Where do we get the 417 billion? I participated in the mediation committee when we proposed, I think CRA and proposed 410 billion, Senate and 415. So I participated in the mediation committee when we brought it to 400 billion. Later on, it went again back to 387. So in principle, I will also support a position that no county should lose even a coin. It's better we fight for more allocation from the treasury so that we get more allocation even up to 400 billion so that every county at least can have an additional income. I want to slightly differ with the senators who are suggesting that we punish counties because of misappropriation of governance, those with audit queries, those with the poor absorption of development funds. When we slash money going to the county, we are not punishing the governor. We are punishing the population, the community living in that county. Therefore, Senate has been given another power under Article 181. So when a rogue governor is brought to the Senate, we have not agreed as a Senate that this governor out of 67 or 47 delegations should keep this governor out of office. We should differ on other interests. Therefore, I think we are preaching water and taking wine. I would love to see a governor who is brought to the Senate, and then we agree, all of us, that order for the 7 delegations, let this governor go home so that that county can proceed. We have cases that have been brought to the Senate, but cutting budgets for the counties because of mismanagement, it is the long thing that the Senate should do. The Senate should do their oversight and make sure that they use the Article 96 of the Constitution so that these people can be able to get their discipline. I also would like to see one day maybe the Committee on CPAC and the CPIC give us a rank on the performance of the governors. Because there's opinion polls which are released every, I think, 2 months, 3 months. There are so many companies which release opinion polls. And the counties which misappropriate more, the governors are ranked from number 1 to 5. Like Kakamega is always number 1 in the opinion polls, Kakamega and governor. And when the senator is in Kakamega, usually makes a lot of noise, like indeed the last 2 weeks when the president was in Kakamega. So I think if CPIC and CPAC can be giving us an analytical data, including even actually the control of budget, actually she knows which county absorbs better, which one does not, the development funds, also the Auditor General, Office of the Auditor General, because they interrogate audited accounts of the counties. These are the people, the offices, which should be giving us the opportunity to interrogate all these issues. I'm happy that Senator Mgatana mentioned that there are specific issues, especially in counties, in Lamu, Taita Taveta, because of OneDrive, and also, which is this, Tana River counties. These counties should be looked at in a different way, Madam Chair, and a formula to be adopted, because even our county mayor, for example, we have a lot of cases on human OneDrive conflict. I think you can see there is an elephant which chased a person yesterday in Meru, and it killed that guy instantly yesterday. So these cases are always there. KWS has failed. If this money can be left even at the county level, at the county treasury, so that every county can sort its own issues. If it's Taveta, which has historical issues since I was a member of parliament in 2013, there are compensations which are still not effected. So, Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to interrogate your report. And don't feel discouraged. This topic is very emotive because it touches on the counties and the politics mixed together. So don't feel discouraged, and your commissioners. Endeleeni kufanyia Wakenya kazi vivyo hivyo mnafanya. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, our DS. You have given a very good summary of quite a number of issues that have come up. Honorable Senators, we are now at the tail end. This topic is one of the most important ones. We do it only once in 5 years, and it's very important that fairness, as I said at the beginning, is not only seen, is not only done, but it's also seen to be done. The chair of CRA, we have given you a lot of issues, and I think it started from the changes that were made on the parameters. And we want to hear your comments, very brief comments, because I think we are still going to have another session. The committee will be calling for another session also. In the last one, we actually had 2 or 3 times with the CRA. I think we had about 3 meetings with CRA. So this is only the first time when the document is being exposed to the honorable senators, and it should not discourage, because we worked on it for 3 times before actually we did. So I'll be expecting the chair of the committee to give us a way forward from moving from here. But because I don't think we are going to answer all the 25 senators who have participated, we would really expect you to clarify where there was need for clarification. The main issue is the changes in parameters, changes also in the titles, that have been used, because if you shift names, it goes with some values are lost, some values are retained. So we would like you to make comments on that one. But I still think the Senate recommendations of the third formula would be very useful. If you are going to give more feedback to the committee, please look at that one. Because by the time the senator said 50% should be implemented as per the second formula, it was extremely serious, because members were feeling that there was too much shift. So I want you to make your comments now, and then we'll allow the chair of the committee to make to give us a way forward as a committee. Otherwise, members, you have done a great job. I think everybody has explained. I don't know whether we managed to capture the essence of the table. Senator Alwale, do you still have a comment on the table that you want to highlight? Because when the table came, but you had an issue on the formula that came out. If you can mention that, it can also go into records. By the way, everything we are doing is being recorded so that the next meeting will be better than today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for that brief opportunity. I will not repeat myself, but just confirm that since we are retreating to the Committee of Finance, we will be able to come out with the proper tables. I take the presentation from the CRA as just one of the views that will inform the Senate when we are now working on this formula. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With those remarks, therefore,
a brief comment.
Before she
Yes.
makes her remarks, yeah?
Actually, after she makes her remarks.
Yes,
Sorry.
I think yours is after she makes. So,
just one point. Because I challenged the issue of income distance, I would like to repeat that much as I was informed by the fact that there are no states in Kenya, but even if we wanted to use that parallel to apply to counties, we run a very dangerous risk. A county like Kajiado, for example, because of its proximity to Nairobi, will not enjoy anything. Machakos will lose out. Kiambu will lose out for the reason that they are just near Nairobi. This is something that cannot apply in Kenya at all.
I think one of the questions was for her to explain exactly what it is. Majority leader said he doesn't even understand what it is. So let her clarify that, then we'll be more informed as we go to the committee stage. Yeah, let's allow her to do maximum 3 minutes or 5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes, and then the chair another 2 minutes, because we needed to have started at noon exactly the next session.
Thank you, Professor. You know, for you, you are able to quickly summarize things into 1-2 minutes, given your background. But let me start by just saying that this formula is not a budgetary tool. It is an allocation tool. What do we mean by that? That we allocate resources to counties and they decide how they are going to utilize them. Whether they'll put the money in health, they decide the percentage. Whether they'll put the money in agriculture, they decide the percentage, because ultimately their budgets are still approved by the county assembly. So it's not a budgetary tool for us. It's a tool to ensure the counties get resources and they share them out to their respective areas of priority. I want to quickly request I want to start with the director, because we were told to be scientific. She will give you the scientific explanation of income distance. And just for clarity, Director, please start coming forward. Or you will respond from there? I thought it would be better here. I think you better come forward. It is not the distance in kilometers, as you will see. It is not the distance in kilometers. So Kajiado, be assured, being a neighbor to Nairobi, you are not a victim.
Thank you, Madam Chair CRA and honorable senators, we appreciate your comments. I would give an explanation of a definition basically of what is income distance. It is not proximity to Nairobi. Article 203 requires the Commission to consider developmental gaps and income or inequalities or disparities among counties. We have a measure called our national GDP. So if you want to know between Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and the US, which is the most developed country, you look at the country's GDP per capita. Now, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics has calculated the GDP, which is the gross national product for Kenya. The Kenya National Bureau has gone ahead and calculated and releases every year the county GDP, gross county product. So if you want to know which is county is the least developed, then you use the GDP of that county. And that is what the Commission is using. What is the GDP of Mandera, Wajir, Nairobi, or Kajiado? It is not proximity from Nairobi. We're asking ourselves, what is this county's GDP? What are the economic activities currently going on in a county which defines their development? We are aware that the counties have different potentials, and from those potentials, those counties can raise own source revenue. Nairobi can raise the highest, followed by other counties, but we have counties who are not even able to raise 1%, even if they put all their effort. So it is an effort by the Commission to address the developmental needs of counties. And it's in the interest of this country that the counties who are lagging behind, devolution came to help them. So the county, for example, with the least GDP is the county of Mandera. The county with the highest GDP is the county of Nairobi, followed by the county of Mombasa. So what are we measuring? We are measuring the gap between the development of Mandera, which is the least developed county, using the county GDP, from Nairobi. Everybody is supposed to move forward. But then you don't hold Nairobi where they are. Now, the question we are asking here is anybody losing the money? Nobody's losing the money. Now, we have borrowed, yes. If you look at our formula and our constitution, we have borrowed from the other countries. South Africa has been here with the formula. The second commission borrowed the sectoral approach to the formula from South Africa. Now, the first commission, which did the first two formulas, borrowed their formula from India. The commission has gone for also benchmarking, and the senators, you said it correctly, that the shift between the second formula and the third formula was so huge. And that is why the Senate, in their own wisdom, tried to use the second formula to stabilize the third formula. Our chair has demonstrated that if you look at the sectoral data, and there is no problem, we have given you all the data. If you update the data, even if you remain with the third formula, you have to update the data. You have new data. The moment you update that data, you saw a county whose numbers were 200,000 away from the road. That count has gone to 600. That county will gain a whole billion. How do you do that? You have a county whose numbers for health, because we have the health parameter and it has come up, you look at that parameter, a county with the highest number was Kakamega. Now, you look at the current number, the number has come down from 800,000 to 80. If you update the data, that county loses 2 billion. So the commission has used all those simulations, and it is not possible to stabilize the third formula using the new data. What have we done? We have taken almost 90% of the second formula, which is what the Senate used to stabilize the formula. But then the issue here, income distance, it is not proximity in terms of kilometers. We are trying to correct for the developmental gaps among the counties. You have asked, why have we changed how we define the parameters remaining similar? Because the stakeholders were not agreeing, or they were not understanding the division of the parameter. The land area, which has been there in the first, second, and the third, the governors have always written to us saying we are not incorporating their water bodies. What we were having as land area incorporated the water bodies. So to be on the safe side and the same understanding, we called it the geographical size, which has got the dry land and the water for the counties, for just uniformity and understanding. And therefore, for the senator who asked, yes, we go all the way to the territorial waters, be it in the Indian Ocean or in the Lake Victoria, because the sum total of the county sizes gives you the constitutional size of Kenya in the Constitution. The base year is 24-25. The water issue, we have data on water by the Kenya National Bureau, but the data for water is safe drinking water. So if you come from Isiolo or the marginalized counties and you have safe water because you have boreholes, your population, a higher number, has access to water. And you will find that the counties without access to water by the WHO definition is the counties in the lake region, because they are using the running waters not classified as data. And therefore, when you allocate resources, it will defeat political and economic logic to allocate money for water for counties not having a challenge with water scarcity. And why the chair for CRS said, we do not have an index on water scarcity in this country. Chair, thank you. And then in this formula, the 417 is a CRA recommendation. The 405, National Treasury has recommended, because we have the budget policy statement presented in IBEC. Now, the minimum allocation you need in this formula for no county to get less than what they have is 400,000. So the commission has said is we will ensure in this formula nobody loses any money, even at 400. The worst you can be is get what you want into 2024 and 2025. And the holding harmless is not annual, like we are having in the current formula, where you keep on having an allocation index and a formula. We have inbuilt that allocation index in the formula. So the moment you use the current allocation factor, that factor moves on without you losing anything. So everybody is held harmless from the first year of the formula to the last of the formula. Chair CRA, thank you, and thank you, senators.
Senator Kakamega, what she's clearly saying is that once we hold you harmless, you are maybe, let's say, at 200,000, and last year you were at 250. Once we hold you harmless, we restore you back to 250 once. And then going forward, that becomes your minimum. So next year, when the sharing of vertical is done, you will not get less than the 250. You continue getting more. So you will never go below once we hold you harmless now.
Maybe, Chair, what I may add, let's use the example of Mandela. For several parameters, when you simulate whichever formula, even the previous one, in the third formula, it was the county with the highest 2 billion
you continue
revenue recall,
so you
because
will
of the
never go
population
below
issue between
once
2009 and 2019. The same happens with the sectoral formula. Let's use the example formula. So then when you run the simulation, when you simulate negative 200, Kakamega even the previous 1.4 in the third formula. What happens at that level with the highest you return revenue recall to Mandela because of the population you return to Kakamega 1.4 billion. The same happens whether it's the sectoral formula or this proxy formula. Whoever gained, then when you run the simulation, Mandela has negative 200, Kakamega has negative 1.4. Will have the additional 400 level, but you return to Kakamega the 1.4 billion, you return to Kakamega, you create an index at that level, everybody not losing. Now, whoever gained and say for example, Elgeyo Marakwet gained 400 losses, so Elgeyo Marakwet will have the additional 400, but you restore to Kakamega the 1.4 and to Mandela 2 billion. You create an index at that level, everybody not losing. That is the index which will share revenues going forward. So nobody loses with the index when it's already in.
Some clarifications
Thank you.
you want to make. And as she comes forward, give me standing there. 2 more minutes. In one of those minutes, you would like to request the chairperson of the Revenue Allocation Committee. Indeed, I think there are some clarifications you want to make. And as she comes forward, our commissioners who are standing there are the ones who Senator Wambua, you are in charge of that subcommittee. The Revenue Allocation. Indeed, it is. The other commissioners would have been here, but we have some the commissioners who are here with the ones who are in charge of that subcommittee, the revenue allocation committee. The other commissioners would have been here, but we have some who proceed engaging 1 minute. The other activities are totally. It is a commission decision. You introduce yourself, because when the others introduced you,
you can use the other microphone.
1 minute.
The mobile one.
You introduce yourself, because when the others introduced you,
you can use the other microphone.
Thank you.
The mobile one.
Chair, I'm Fatuma Gedi, Commissioner Revenue Allocation. Thank you, Chair. I'm Fatuma Gedi, Allocation Committee. Commissioner Revenue Allocation. Chair, I am the chair of First Revenue Allocation Committee. To thank the senators for asking questions. First of all, I want to take the opportunity to thank the senators, but as for asking questions, and it is their right. As you have demonstrated, Chair. As you have demonstrated, we the commissioners, we are here to correct historical injustice. We the commissioners, we are here to correct historical injustice and discrimination. To have everybody, just and that is what we have presented. To have everybody on board, and that is what we have presented, Chair. The reason why we have moved away from sectoral, you've again demonstrated. Moved away from sectoral, you've again demonstrated. So again, I want to plead with the senators in the House, plead with the senators in the House, follow up with KNBS, so that this country can have reliable data. That is where the problem is. For of course, right now, no county is losing. But just to respond to a few queries, the counties that have gained, there are some counties that have gained. And we've noted that if we are to be fair, they were unfairly benefited from the third formula. So as commission, we do not want to sit and do the same mistake. We wanted to correct what we have done. For why land area moved from 8 and population 42. Honorable senators, the population in the third formula was duplicating all the parameters. Health, agriculture, poverty, it's a number of poor people. So again, you have to balance this country. And again, the other challenge was the small counties. Right now, in our formula, the biggest beneficiaries are the small counties. Like Vihiga, Tarakanidi, Elgeyo Marakwet, those who have been really crying for additional allocation. So, Chair, mine is just to persuade the honorable senators that the powers with you, ours is just to recommend. But again, we have to be very objective. We don't want to look at my county is losing or another one is gaining. Let's look at the entire country. They are the half and they are the half. So let's balance all that and we move forward together.
Thank you, Rebekedi.
Commissioner Dr. Wayaki, half a minute, please. Half a minute. My time being just moderated here, and I needed to summarize.
Thank you, Chair. I think I just want to add that the majority asked what have we proposed because of the challenges we have in data, and I would want to tell the Senate that is a bill that came to us, the county statistics which would be important for them to consider and approve it because it would help us to deal with the data challenges. If you look at 7 counties, only about like 4 counties do the statistical abstract. So in terms of beyond the KNBS, if we have well-reviewed data from the counties, that would be important. And the county statistics, they will help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair and Professor, I think most issues have been addressed. Most of the key issues. Some of them had been indicated. We have recommended. It is Senate to determine. I think the issue instance has been clearly explained. Holding harmless. Senator Muranga, we only need 12 billion to be able to hold everybody harmless. Treasury has proposed the figure 405 billion. We were with them at the IBEC. So that figure is 6 billion what we require to hold the counties harmless. I think it is clear that we have a problem with sectoral data. We have explained. I do not want to further explain on that one. Senator Sifuna is not here. Just want to tell him this is a zero-sum game. The figure, if one has to get more, one has to get less. So what should we be looking at? We should be looking at how we can have a bigger cake baked at the national level. So that is where we are fighting over rabbit when we should be looking something bigger than that. That is where actually laying our emphasis. Senator Wambua, we were saying, you were also asking why are we taking a mandate which is not ours. Indeed, it is our mandate to recommend both vertical and horizontal. So we are in our right space to recommend the 417. Tana River, yes, we do agree with you. In fact, we discussed it at length. What do we do with counties that face disasters in India? That they set aside a fund, which is there annually, and because we know these disasters will take. And even the senator who indicated about the special problems that other counties have. Yes, indeed. We thought this would fall under our recommendation way forward, because we think it is indeed very important, because we are not able to secure ways and means of ensuring that is set up. So that is set up. So that is we are going to recommend. Senator Narok, what is the best thing to get more resources? We need your support. We need the higher support. We really need to ensure that we bake that cake, and we need to support the national government in doing that. Senator Embu, Senator Machakos, as we told you, you are not losing. No one is losing. Senator Eddy wanted to know the efforts of CRA and the issue of GCP. It has been said here clearly, we deal with the county gross product, which has already been developed. So by the time it is being given, we are picking it, it has already factored all those factors you were talking about. On the issue of geographical size, it has come out clearly, yes, indeed. It includes the territorial waters, it's not just the land. On the issue of Senator Kiambu, to cushion counties, and then there was another issue of cushioning small counties. Indeed,
please
in this
summarize,
formula, because
a number of the items had been touched by your colleague.
Yes, we have actually cushioned the small counties.
So don't touch all of them.
What Senator Magina asked again, Article 203, that has been clearly explained. Basic share, indeed. We agree with you, Senator Majority, that it is important that we harmonize our terminology, and the basic share is what we use, or equal share, to cushion also the small counties. I think generally most issues have been addressed, and the issue of equalization fund, Senator Oburu, equalization fund, we have the second policy now. We will be doing the third policy. We don't want to do that until we understand what has happened, the projects and activities of the second policy. And yes, some counties, we may change. The Commission is yet to make a decision. The first policy had 14 counties. The second policy considered areas, and those areas, I think 1,437 areas. So the third policy will not be done until we finalize and understand the effects of the second policy. Professor and honorable senators, allow me to stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A big applause for the chair. Okay, as the chair of the committee comes to give his last word, there was a request that Senator Kina makes a short proposal.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. My proposal is as follows. Given the history of the last parliament and what we did to be able to get consensus, I think the way forward should be that before this CRA report is tabled to Parliament, because once it's tabled in Parliament, it will be committed to the committee. So my suggestion is that the majority and the minority side should constitute a broader team to be able to work with the committee so that we can seek this consensus, because we don't have time. Because what I'm seeing is that this will come, and based on experience, it will be defeated. And we may end up having to vote maybe 10 or 20 times for this thing again. So to be able to ensure that we deal with time as the way forward is that the committee should put together all these suggestions, the recommendations made by CRA, and then we come up with a consensus that will be able to go through Senate. That's my way forward.
Thank you. I would like to ask the chair to bear that in mind when he has his 3 minutes, because all we want from you, Chair, is a way forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Senators and Madam Chair. Since I had made some disclaimer at the beginning of the engagement, the proposal by Senator Lekina will, I'll just request the Honorable Senators, if it's acceptable, we adapt it. You know, it's just thinking in the line of making our work ahead a bit easier by expanding the consultative forum between the committee and the House in a way that will make it more all-inclusive. I will conclude by asking for the approval of that proposal by the Senate. But let me say, in the last and the third generation formula, because of the controversy and about 12 times voting, and the Senate was sharply divided. At that time, a decision was made by then President to move the shareable revenue from 316 billion to 370 billion. That is what provided a solution at that point, because every time a new formula is introduced, these challenges is going to happen. What that indicated is the fact that whenever the parameters are adjusted or new parameters are introduced, we are going to run into this challenge of thinking about holding harmless, some counties, looking at counties that are getting very little money that may not be able to run devolution. Likewise, my majority leader, and I'm happy because we were in that Senate. Remember, after the 12-time voting, the shareable revenue was adjusted from 316 to 370 in order to make sure that we have a solution. I believe 54 billion, and that created a bit of sanity. And it also looks a bit apparent that if the numbers are not adjusted to what CRA has recommended, we are likely to fall into the same. Now, we will work on persuading maybe the government who look into that proposal of CRA, which is marginally not very high, maybe acceptable, so that then it reduces and the parameters are done. Now, on where my colleague, I just wanted to pick on two issues. One, my brother Senator Mungatana talked about parameter of emergency. Even if the parameter of emergency was allocated, it just will form part of the shareable revenue, and then it will be subjected to the budget. Because everything, these parameters will translate to a certain figure for each county in terms of the horizontal share of revenue. Now, the horizontal share, if it comes 10 billion, the 10 billion will be up to the county government doing their plan to make sure they put emergency fund allocation in place. So if it is factored in, or it is not factored in, it makes no difference. It just requires the prudence of the county governments to be able to make sure that they have that emergency planning. You might intervene and provision is made. However, when it comes to budgeting, the county government decides not to allocate, then it just beats the purpose. That's in planning. The elephant in the room was income distance as the chair, and even as it was explained, I still find it very difficult to start sharing this with the public, the general public, the population of Kenya, in order to make sure that they're able to relate to, as they have related to, first formula, parameter, second formula, third formula. Now, for them to relate to this formula in an issue that has not been commonly in use in terms of application, but that is something we'll navigate when we engage with the stakeholders. Lastly, it has come out very clearly, the issue of fiscal responsibility. That is an issue that we will look at. And finally, from when the formula was submitted, there is a court ruling on population census case for some of the counties, which also require to be factored into consideration, God willing. Now, before I conclude, can we have maybe a concurrence with what Senator Ledama has shared, that of the two, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can we give him a hand clap? I think he has done a good job. The proposal has been put before you, Senators. I support the proposal for one reason. There is rumor that there are going to be changes in committees, leader of majority. And if that is going to be actualized, the committee that listened may be different from the committee that will come in. So I think the proposal that is coming forward is good, in that the two leaders, leader of majority and leader of minority, can pick the membership for this committee that will drive the agenda and come back to us. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary say nay? I normally shouldn't say that in front of the DS, but he has smiled, so I think he's okay with it. So I think we are okay. We leave that to the two leaders to give us a team that is broad-based, a team that will touch on highly populated areas, highly dispersed areas, so that we come back to this. I think that will make things much better than in the last session. With those remarks, honorable members, may I now invite my very good student, Honorable Wambua, to come and chair his session. I know we have eaten into your session because this session was a very, very serious one. May we thank them again. My panel was extremely good and they have persisted for almost 2 hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mwalimu. So I want to get consensus from members that the next session, which touches on CPAC and CPIC, we don't take as much time as you've taken in the CRA, that we agree to do it in less than 1 hour. Is that okay? And we'll stick to it. If we agree to it, then we stick to it. In less than 1 hour, we done. Actually, so we say now it's what time? Now it's 12:35. So by 1:30, we are done. Thank you. So, honorable members and our guests today, I want to right away invite to the stage the chairperson of the Senate County Public Accounts
Commission. Of what needs to be done in all those entities, you will have an opportunity to look at. But let me also talk about the challenges, which is very important, and the threats. we have a challenge on frequent postponement of meetings. It is very difficult to have meetings approved, especially with counties which have accountability problems. For example, Isiolo County. This Isiolo County, I think Honorable Majority Leader and Honorable Minority Leader and the Whip, something has to be done about it. The governor of this county is rogue. We have not even been able to successfully do a meeting with him. So the issue of postponement of meetings is an issue, and we may think about making amendments to Powers and Privileges Act so that summons or invitation by the oversight committees are taken seriously. The issue of witnesses appearing without proper responses, it's common. And the other major challenge is the court ruling. You remember in October 2024, the High Court pronounced that Parliament must consider and conclude audit reports within the timeline set out in the Constitution. That's 3 months. And then the issue of limited capacity of the assemblies. So, as I said, there's quite a lot of issues that we can discuss as far as public investments are concerned. But I think as we go on, we'll have an opportunity. And the National Treasury gazetted a task force, which is almost completing its work. So when we resume, we'll be tabling a report on that, and that will be a major achievement of this Senate, unlocking 80 billion shillings that belongs to pensioners. Thank you very much, and we will be discussing in the discussion part. Thank you, honorable members.
You've done a good job, but you've overspent your time by more than 7 minutes. Let's agree. The next presenter, Senator Kajwang, when you've done 5 minutes, I'll notify you, and then when your time is up, I'll notify you. I don't have to stand behind a senator to conclude their submission. I thank you, Karim.
Thank you, Senator Wambua. My reputation is that I usually take longer than 10 minutes, but now I am forced to do this within 10 minutes. Mr. Speaker, the leader of majority, the Senate Public Accounts Committee was in Arusha because the liaison committee had programmed that committees would travel at around this time. So I had to travel from Arusha just to honor my colleagues and to make this presentation. I had a PowerPoint presentation. I don't know whether it will come up, because without it, I'll end up making political statements, which might land me in trouble with Edwin Sifuna. So are you able to put up that presentation as a guide? Okay, thank you. I think just go to the next slide, which just is the outline of my presentation, and go straight to the third slide. Now, the third slide was talking about the mandate of the Public Accounts Committee, which is not foreign to members. But there's a broad mandate that we have not taken advantage of. We have focused more on examination of reports of the Auditor General. But you see the first mandate, that is the standing order, to exercise oversight over national revenue allocated to county governments. And the argument is, if expenditure by national government reduces the entitlement of county governments, does the Senate have a right to question that expenditure? Whenever we are dividing revenue, there are always these things we call national interest matters. And sometimes there are things like NYS, free primary education. So if we have that mandate in our standing orders, should the Senate Public Accounts Committee just restrict itself to the accounts of the 47 counties, or from time to time, we can examine national government expenditure which has an effect on reducing the allocation to counties? In my view, the answer is yes. Because in the past, we have forayed into that territory. Anyang' Nyong'o had a committee that looked into Kenya Airways. There's a time that Damo Lekina and I were in a committee that looked at the Roraka land matter because we thought it was a big issue. So I think going forward and as we advance, the Public Accounts Committee and the Public Investments Committee, and generally all the committees of the Senate, we should not restrict ourselves to matters of the county. We can still look at issues of national government which have an implication on the financial resources of county governments. If we move to the next slide, we should be, we'll be looking at the fiduciary risks in county governments. Fiduciary risks was a concept that we introduced in the last parliament. My editor-in-chief was Ledamo Lekina. We came up with the first fiduciary risks report, which was adopted by the House. Immediately upon the adoption, the Council of Governors went on a fundraising to take the Senate to court. They required every county government to contribute about 2 million so that they could go to court to challenge the fiduciary risks report of the Senate. And it was quite unfortunate. The reason they were challenging that report is that we had recommended a surcharge on governors for contributions to the Council of Governors. Now, the interesting bit is that the money was raised, but they didn't go to court. So we don't know what the money was used for because we haven't seen the accounts of the Council of Governors. We are working on the second fiduciary risk report with the help of the Parliamentary Budget Office, and we hope it's still in draft. We hope we'll be able to bring it back so that we can see how we have advanced from the first report that was tabled about 5 years ago to what we have now. I will not go into a lot of details on that. I think because of time, let me jump to the next slide, which is on emerging issues in public finance oversight. Senator Osotsi has touched on it. On the 1st of October, Justice Nga made a declaration that the Constitution requires the Auditor General to audit and present reports to Parliament within 6 months of the closure of financial years. That is by 31st of December. I have information that on the 31st of December 2024, for the first time, the Auditor General brought all reports to Parliament. Those reports are before Parliament. Now, the challenge is the Senate has only 3 months to consider those reports. And Justice Nga said that the provisions in the Constitution are mandatory and must be complied with. And he argued that if the drafters of our Constitution thought that more time should be afforded, it would have been left to Parliament to legislate, or it would have said within reasonable timelines. This is as mandatory as the timelines for consideration of presidential petitions. That was the position of Justice Nga. We have not filed an appeal because we are outside the timeframes. We made a resolution as a committee that we should seek a review so that it does not affect the past reports and the past work. And the genesis of this ruling is that some guys were fingered for squandering money in Nairobi City County. They looted the Nairobi City Liquor Fund. And when the Assembly directed that they be investigated and be declared unfit to hold office, they went to court saying that the report was issued outside the constitutional timelines, and the judge agreed with them. The judge did not go into the substance of the issues that were raised, and so the thieves were let free. How are we going to survive with this emerging jurisprudence? Honorable Majority Leader, if you look at those timelines, half the timeline for Parliament is already spent. The Auditor General has done her bit. For us, January we're on recess, February half of it will be away, and assuming you have a committee in place next week, they will have not more than 30 days to consider 94 reports, 47 executives, 47 county assemblies. What do? Do we ignore the directions of the court, or do we go back to the constitutional timelines? Good practice is to comply with the constitutional timelines. We had given some proposals. So part of the proposals was a 9-member committee considering 94 reports in 30 days might be very, very difficult. Part of the proposals was perhaps expand the size of the committee so that the committee can process business through subcommittees. Another proposal was to establish an additional committee, the same way Senator Sossi's committee has decongested the backlog that was there. Perhaps have a separate committee for county assemblies, or have 2 committees that then would have some random allocation. It's the only way we can be able to beat that constitutional timeline. Now, please click on that objections link, because governors have been taken through this ruling, and the last meeting we had...
Objection being raised.
is...
The last meeting we had was a Governor Kisi. He came with a battalion of lawyers. Of course, Senator Nyonka is in my committee, so you can imagine the environment that was in that meeting. And the Governor Kisi came and argued on this basis that we had called him outside timelines, and therefore we were wasting his time. He definitely left a very deflated man once we are done with him. But the other governors are going to do the same thing. What Governor Simbarati did was just a precursor to what other governors are going to do. You invite a governor for 2023, he'll tell you, go to Justice Jairus Nga's ruling. I think moving faster, the matter seems to have come to attention when the timelines for appeal was exhausted. And we had made a resolution to go for a review, and I don't know whether that has been filed, but my committee made that resolution. Next slide before Senator Wambua bumps me off stage. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Those are the timelines, and we must abide by the Constitution. If we can consider presidential petitions in that number of days, then why should it take forever to consider audit reports? I agree with the Justice Jairus Nga ruling. My only reservation is he should have allowed some transition for us to deal with the backlog, so that going forward, we are able to meet that target. Moving on to the next. Now, giving effect to Senate recommendations, I think this is where the frustration is, that we always feel like we are making a lot of noise, but there's nothing that comes out of it. I'm happy, Madam OAG, I've seen the reports, a summary of the reports that you have brought before us. No county executive has a disclaimer, none has an adverse opinion, all the 47 are qualified, and there's none with an unqualified opinion. As per our fiduciary risk report and our template, a county that has a disclaimer, we should not even be discussing. We should not even be allowing them to continue receiving funds. We should direct, or we should request, unfortunately, it is a preserve of the National Treasury, the Secretary of the National Treasury, to initiate the process of stoppage of funds. In South Africa, which has roughly similar arrangements to us, the provincial system, if a county or a municipality has a disclaimer or adverse, it is handed over to the national government for management and recovery and administration. In our case, you go to Kitui, they have a disclaimer, the records have been burnt, so there's no way of reconstructing evidence, but the county still continues receiving resources. And I think that's where there's been a failure in linking financial reporting to financial incentives. And when I listened to CRA in the morning, I was not very happy when CRA said that they dropped the fiscal responsibility index because Senate had made that decision. CRA, it is your constitutional mandate. It is there in your job description in the Constitution. Matters of fiscal responsibility, matters of revenue optimization. I wish that in your advice, you would have come and told us, let's put in some 2%, so that if there's a county that has an unqualified opinion, we can reward good financial management and good financial reporting. Because for now, governors don't care, because that financial report is not linked to any incentive. So I think these are some of the things that we'll be injecting when we'll be considering the report before the Finance Committee. As I conclude, my next slide. Yeah, so we've had headlines like those. Graft Lord nailed, 40 big fish. Next. Now, graft investigations in counties tend to be very slow, but when the politics demands, they are very hyped. I hear rumors that the Governor Bomet has been arrested today. You saw what happened to Marsabit. Marsabit appeared before my committee. We challenged them to account for 8 billion. That was the total allocation for the financial year. The media picked it, put up a headline that Marsabit has stolen 8 billion. And then the next week, EACC made a very dramatic arrest of the governor, the current governor and the former governor. Now the question is, how far has that matter progressed? It has gone cold turkey. The DPP has frustrated prosecutions. In this particular case, the DPP had made a move to withdraw the case. In the Obado matter, I think the DPP did the same thing. In the Kidero matter, I think the DPP did the same thing. we need to ensure that we have strong and proper synergies between the various agencies. In the next slide, please. And I've said, just like in Nigeria, I think Nigerians are also frustrated with their governors. Even them, it took them a decade to bring a former governor to book. Now, I know that the governor for, that was Samburu, actually his prosecution began after the Senate had visited the county. I recall we descended in that county on 3 choppers. Senator Lelegwe is not here, he would have confirmed that. And then a week later, we saw the EACC start to do things. I think we need a multi-agency approach. The question has been who should lead the multi-agency. Should it be EACC? Should it be DCI? We have varying degrees of disappointment with them. DCI investigating a fire in Migori, they cleared the county. EACC, you know, they run after things depending on the politics of the day. I've said we need a sticks and carrots approach, because if this process does not lead to greater financial allocation to a county, governors will not take it seriously. I think maybe finally the issue of professional associations. We have brought ISPAC into our considerations and deliberations. ISPAC has requested for a seat in our committee. We are still looking at the administrative elements of that, so that if there's an accountant who is found to have poorly prepared financial statements, ISPAC can take action on the spot. We have tried to bring that professional responsibility. But also we need to depoliticize and de-weaponize the fight against corruption. Turkana is an example. We went to Turkana and declared it a crime scene. To date, nothing has happened. The people of Turkana, they think that Senate is just a bunch of barking dogs. We have escalated matters to EACC. We have called EACC to our committee, but you do not see accountability for the amounts of money that, and for the projects that we saw in Turkana. Let me finalize by thanking my colleagues with whom I've served in the committee. The 9 of us have been extremely diligent. And you know, sometimes some of these accountability committees, they collapse halfway because of issues of conflict of interest. I'm very proud of the synergies and the teamwork that we have built as a committee. And I also want to thank the Secretariat. We've had a very solid and very expansive Secretariat. Jeremiah Nyegenye, the people you have sent to my committee, sometimes I feel sorry for them because we sit for far too long. I want to thank them and I want to congratulate them. And there's still so much work to be done. And because on these matters, it is the direction of leadership. Please fast track the establishment, fast track the constitution of those committees, because every single day we delay, the 30th March deadline is waiting for us. I want to thank all of you who have come to my committee. We have tried to accommodate everyone, and whenever you are in my committee, if there was someone to be believed between the governor and a senator, my committee, the default position is to believe the senator and subject the governor to an oath, because we believe you've got a better visibility of issues in your county. Thank you.
Wow. I think let's give a better round of applause for the 2 chairs of our watchdog committees. Good people without saying anything. If capacity was the only consideration in the constitution then of the next committees, then they fit the bill. I said, if that was the only consideration. Guys, you're doing a good job. We are proud of what you've done. We thank you for giving the Senate very positive visibility in dealing with issues of our side. And so we have around 30 minutes left, and I said we have just to stick to our own agreement. That we have 2 ladies, gracious ladies, who are supposed to be making presentations in terms of being the discussants under this session. And there will be reactions from the plenary, right? So with 30 minutes, is it okay, ladies and gentlemen, that we allocate them 15 minutes? They will take the 30 minutes. Then we will borrow from your lunch some 10 minutes for your reactions. Is that okay? We give them 15? Thank you. Let's give them 15. So let's begin with the Auditor General, FCPA Nancy Gadungu, CBS. Please come and make your presentation. You have 15 minutes. When you do your 10 minutes, I will alert you. And when your time is up, I'll also alert you. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Chair of the session, honorable members of the Senate, your staff and other members, members of Constitution Commissions and independent offices, CPA Mary and FCPA Dr. Nyakango. I wish to start first by saying that the success of the Senate Public Investment Committee and the Senate Public Accounts Committee rides on the work that the Office of the Auditor General submits to Parliament. And when they report positives and success and action, then indeed it means that we have been impactful as the Office of the Auditor General, and that the members of Parliament and Senate in particular has been impactful in oversight and accountability in the use of public resources. We had a long discussion on revenue allocation. Took quite a bit of time, which is good, because when we discuss revenue allocation and agree how much goes to devolution and how much is retained at national level, the next stage is disbursement. I actually thought Dr. Nyakango would speak before me so that we follow the chain. The next stage is disbursement, and then I come in and give you a report on accountability. The issues raised are pertinent, and I will speak to just a few of them. One I want to speak to is to confirm that at this point in time, all the reports for county executives, county assemblies, county funds, hospitals, water companies are with you. Probably when you resume, you'll need a full day for the tabling of those reports, because they should be over 2,000. There is a perception that the Auditor General audits 47 counties, which means 47 executives and 47 assemblies. I wish that was the case, because I would be able to audit and report probably within a month. But because of what Senator Osotsi has talked about, right now, for the 2023-2024, you have 2,035 county government entity reports that you are required to discuss. And that is not all. You have the county executives, the county revenue funds and receivers of revenues. You have county emergency funds, about 24. You have over 130 county public funds. We have the car loans and mortgages, level 4 and level 5 hospitals. That's about 376 level 4 hospitals and 18 level 5 hospitals. And with the implementation of the facilities improvement funds, honorable senators, the level 2 and level 3 hospitals are soon going to be self-accounting, and I will be issuing separate statements or audit reports for them. Then we have the TVETs, about 991. And we have the 82 water companies. That is quite a big scope or universe. It's a lot of work for you. It's a lot of work for me. And that's why the timelines have become a little bit tight. And we have had to discuss with the Senate on the proposals on how we can handle. And I like that the chair for the County Public Accounts Committee has proposed some two very key or far-reaching solutions. Either expand the committees and discuss the reports